All right, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with how do they do that live. And the ISTE standard that we're going over today is Empowered Learner. And so you're going to hear lots of different great ways you can empower your students in the classroom. As we're getting in and getting settled, just a little reminder of our agenda here. And just a couple reminders to please keep your microphone muted and your camera muted, and just post any questions you do have in the chat, and my team will work on replying to those as quickly as possible. Our agenda for the next hour or so, we're going to go over our housekeeping items, and then we'll talk about some upcoming workshops, and you'll see kind of a fun trailer about all the upcoming workshops that one of our team members worked really hard on. Then we'll learn how a teacher is using Padlet to empower her students as learners. And then we'll learn about the Smart Start lesson plans with Matthew Ketchum. And then we will end today with StudyMate, which is a study tool available in Schoology. And we'll actually have StudyMate coming and conducting that session, or that portion of the session. So you'll be able to hear directly from the vendors themselves. My name is Alexandra Hancock, and I'll be your MC for today. I'll be introducing the various guests and all of that, and kind of being your conductor of affairs here. Just a couple housekeeping items as we get in and get going. We do ask that you arrive on time. So thank you very much for being here on time for the session today. And you do need to attend the entire event. This time we're doing a little bit differently. Normally we do a live event, but today this is just a regular Microsoft Teams event. And so that means you have full access to all of Microsoft Teams. Oops. Let me get back in my presentation here. I apologize for that. Happy clicker. All right, this is a Microsoft Teams event, which means your camera and mic is disabled for the session for today, but you can always ask questions in the chat. We're not going to have a formal Q&A like we do in our live events, but you do have access to the chat, and you can post any questions that you have there, and my team will do our best to either answer it live on the air with you or reply in the chat. And I just got the notification that this is being recorded, so thank you to whoever started the recording, and I just want you guys to be aware that this is being recorded as well. And then as usual, attendance will be marked tomorrow. Because this is a team event, we don't need to worry about any sort of attendance link. So as long as you are here and you attend the entire time, that will be counted in the attendance sheet, and we will mark that attendance tomorrow. And we'll send a follow-up email containing all of today's resources for you. So that's all of our housekeeping stuff. Without further ado, we'll go ahead and dive on in to our upcoming webinars. And if I could get just a quick thumbs up once I hit play that you guys can hear this, that would be appreciated. All right, so that was our great video on all of our upcoming webinars, all related to Empower Learner. Hopefully you saw something there that was exciting to you, whether that might be something like Canva or WeVideo, and you kind of got a little preview of what those sessions might entail even, so that is fantastic. You go ahead and close out of this. Come on, close out of this. There we go. And we'll continue on with, oh my goodness, it's not cooperating. We'll continue on with our presentation. There we go. So like again, hopefully you found a workshop that you're excited to attend. We have lots of upcoming ones, including some next level workshops around Canva and WeVideo. And we'll be going more into quizzes and Padlet and things like that. So we've got lots of great webinars for you guys coming up. Definitely check out the PD catalog. They are already in there. And you can thank Armando Arviso for that fantastic video. He put that together and he gave us a fabulous template so that we can continue to do little trailers for all of our upcoming webinars for you guys as well. Continuing on with our standards for today. Today we are talking about Empowered Learner. And before we dive on into our presenters, I do want to talk a little bit about what the Empowered Learner standard entails. And Matthew Ketchum, if you're on the call and you feel like I'm missing anything or you want to take over and share anything about the Empowered Learner, definitely feel empowered to do so. So the Empowered Learner standard is as such. The Empowered Learner standard requires that students leverage technology to take an active role in choosing, achieving, and demonstrating competency in their learning goals informed by the learning sciences. So this is really getting students thinking about their own learning, analyze their own learning, asking questions about their own learning, and then empowering themselves to take a larger role in their own educational journey. It's kind of a unique standard for the ISTE standards. Definitely getting students to thinking about their own learning and thinking and reflecting is a really good practice. If you're wondering if you're already meeting the standard with your students or how you might be meeting the standard with your students, because this can be kind of a tricky one, these are some great guiding questions to start with. So if you kind of review these with me here, just be thinking about your own lessons that you're already doing, or maybe ways that you could tweak current lessons that you're already doing, and think about how you can provide students these different opportunities. And we'll review these here. So one of the good questions is, how are you providing students the opportunity to set personal learning goals? And that's where the students do have a voice in that goal. You're not just setting it for them, they're setting their own goals for their learning. How are you giving them opportunities to build confidence in their digital learning environments? How are you giving them opportunities to use feedback to continue to improve their performance? So are they given the opportunity to do something meaningful with the feedback that you provide, or are we just moving on from that assignment? And then how can they use the digital tools that we have through the district or some of the great free tools we've approved to improve their learning? So these are great questions for you to ask yourself as the teacher to ensure that you're providing these great opportunities for your students to feel more empowered with their own learning journey. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and dive on into our first presenter, unless Matthew has anything that he would like to add about the Empowered Learner standard before we dive on in.
You're doing a great job, Alexandra.
Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate it. All right, so first we're going to hear from Amber, and unfortunately Amber was not able to make the presentation today, but she did record a fantastic video on how she is able to use Padlet to empower her students. So we'll go ahead and watch that. It's about 15 minutes, but it's a fantastic video that Amber has made for us. And we'll make that full screen.
Hi everyone, so my name is Amber Youngman. I am an English teacher at Johansen High School and a former technology coach for the campus here. Today I wanted to talk with you about a great assignment that I came up with using the tech tool Padlet. To me, it ended up kind of filling a need that I had in my class, and I figured it would be a great time to share with you in case it's something that you're looking for in your class as well. So if you don't know what Padlet is, I don't know your background on this, but Padlet is just an online bulletin board. It sounds really simplistic when I say it like that, and that's because it is. The great thing about Padlet is because it's so simple, it's so versatile. You can use it for whatever you want to use it for. Brainstorming, responding to questions, responding to peers, putting in a gallery and responding to different pictures and different things like that. It's really a great tool to use for so many different things. And it's very much almost like a Google Doc, where when you give students permission to write on your Padlet, they can. Or if you just want them to look at something and they don't have permission to write on it, you can also do that as well. So a few years ago when I started doing this, there was a need in my classroom. Basically, this was kind of around the time we had one-to-one devices maybe for about 1 to 2 years already when I came up with this idea. And I was getting really burned out and frustrated with myself because I feel like I wasn't using technology wisely. And I fell into the pitfall that I think a lot of teachers fall into when they first go digital, and that is taking a worksheet that they would have normally printed out for their students and just stuck it online for the students to do. Same questions, same format, same concept. The only thing is that it's just digital now. And I fell into that trap too, and sometimes I still use that because it's convenient and it's just what I need my students to do. But we were right in the middle of studying a novel, Frankenstein, and I was really sick of just the standard study guides that I had been doing for a couple of years by then. I was really bored with the questions. It was really easy for my students to simply Google answers. There was no responsibility, and I didn't really know that they knew what they were talking about, and they weren't talking to each other either. So I wanted to kind of create an assignment that allowed my students to talk to each other about the novel and basically putting the responsibility on them to show me what they learned. And I started thinking about ways that I could do this. And I wanted to hit these reading skills, writing skills, listening and speaking skills that sometimes get put to the wayside, especially listening and speaking. And I also wanted to have a resource available to them down the road for the final exam on the novel that they could go back to and study from. So these were all of the needs that I needed to do. The first time I gave my students this version of an assignment, it was a complete failure. I failed miserably because I did not give my students enough instructions. I didn't give them any modeling. I didn't give them any true expectations for them. So it was very superficial. Their answers were very superficial. The work was very one dimension and had no depth to it. They still weren't talking to one another. It was not the greatest. Basically, what I did was I told them, show me what you know. Students know how to do that at that point in the year. We were in the first semester still. I don't know what I was expecting. But it's not their fault. It was my fault for not really communicating my expectations of what good work looked like and what I was expecting them to know. So this is where the second iteration of this assignment kind of came through. So what I ended up doing is this gradual release of responsibility. I created a blank Padlet template that had the topics and questions that I wanted my students to respond to. Very similar to the study guide that we had been doing in the past, but in a whole new format, all right? And every student in the group that I placed them in small groups in my class, about 5 to 6 groups per class overall, each student had to respond at least once to each question. So this way, the students are actually sharing the work of the bulk load of the work there, and they were able to add on, respond to one another, do whatever it is. And the thing is that there could be no repetitions, okay? So no repeated answers. They could not say the same thing or have the same idea as another peer. So that meant that they really had to talk to one another and communicate who is doing what on this Padlet to create this study guide. And it ended up being a resounding success. I was hearing conversations from my students that I had never heard before. So I wanted to show you an example of what this blank template looks like and then how it's kind of changed over the years. So what I did in this first one was what you see here. I created this Padlet template and I kind of made these questions. So I'm asking them to identify the major events. Not only do they have to not have any repetitions of the major events, so they had to talk to one another about what event belonged there, but they also had to put them in chronological order. What a great review for a chapter, right? Important quotations, characterization, all of these different questions I'm asking. And then I gave my students the permissions to write and respond to these, and they were able to do so. This has changed kind of a little bit as I've gone. I find that this actual format here is a little bit too messy and kind of all over the place. So what I do now, let me go ahead and show you, is when I'm ready to do this type of assignment with my students, I go onto Padlet and I really like using this shelf template right here. I think it organizes the information a little bit better. And so I'm going to go ahead and just call this Study Guide Group 1. G1 for group 1. You can change the wallpaper, the background. I like changing different things here and there. What you want to make sure that you have is the attribution. Your students are going to be logged in, and you want to see who is posting what. If you don't have the attribution, you can't see who's really posting what. You don't have to require approval. You may want to filter profanity if you have that kind of class. I know sometimes I have that kind of class. But when you require approval, I'm going to show you what I mean by that in a little bit. If you really don't trust your class, require approval, but that means you literally have to approve every single post, which is not the best. When I go ahead and click next, it's ready for me to start posting. And so I put down the topics I want my students to be discussing. So important characters, major events might be another one. And I would go so on and so forth. And then I am going to make duplicates of this for however many groups I have in that class. So I'll make 5 duplicates for one period and just change the title, Study Guide G1, Study Guide G2, so on and so forth. And then I put it into Schoology, and I'll show you how to do that. When I hit the share button here, there's a few things that you need to make sure that you do. And I found out the hard way why you need to do these things. The first you need to do is change the privacy. So right now, what you want to do is make sure it's members only. This ensures that a student has to be logged in with their Google account in order to post or even see the Padlet. If you don't do this, they might accidentally join the Padlet as a guest, and there's 2 things wrong with that. Number 1, you don't know who's posting, so you can't give them credit. And number 2, they could use that guest access to post some pretty inappropriate things. So when you have it down for members only, that means that they have to log in using their district ID if they want to get credit for it. And then visitor permissions, I want them to be able to write on it. I don't want them to edit. I don't want them to just read. I want them to write. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then I'm going to go ahead and go back, and I want to grab that link. And then when I'm ready, I'll show you how I set up this assignment for my first and third periods. I have my classes linked in Schoology. So I call it whatever assignment title I want to call it. And then I have rules now. And sometimes these rules change. And then I put down all the group links for period 1 and all the group links for period 3. And I verbally tell them in class what group they belong to. I also have one Padlet created just for the absent students of those classes to share. So that's the easy way to kind of set this up. And then let me kind of show you how I phrase this to my students. So with the groups that they're assigned in, they're all going to be posting on the same Padlet to questions from, in this case, chapters 1 through 8 of Frankenstein. And then here are my rules. You may change your rules, but these rules ended up working for my class. Number 1, they have to be signed into their Padlet, so the response is recorded under their name. 2, everyone in the group must make at least 1 post for every section or topic. You could also put a word count on this if you wanted to. Number 3, you cannot have the same response as another person in your group. So for a major character section, only one of them could have picked Victor Frankenstein. This is a great debate that they get to have in class, and it's really making sure that the students are not just picking the main characters that are easy to spark notes. They need to know what's going on in these chapters, right? The same thing applies for important events, so on and so forth. And then I told my students in this particular class that there was no set word count, but the more they put, the more that they would have for a study guide later on. And so what they ended up doing, I'll show you an example now. I've taken my students' names off of this one, but this is what the study guide ends up looking like for them. So they have their topics on top, and I have some discussion questions linked here that they can even go in. And then I ask each student in that group to pick a color for their post. That way it makes it easier for me to grade down the road. So let's say I'm looking for this kind of burnt orange color. That's the same person. I know that they posted all 5 times, checkbox, go. If I'm looking for all the greens, I can easily find if this student posted on all 5 counts, and it looks like this student has. Wonderful. So there's all the greens. So I could then check that off, go. Super easy to grade, quick, easy if you're just counting completion as well. And then look at the depth of some of these answers. Just the breadth of them is really great. They're using textual evidence. They're getting no repetitive answers. So each one is really contributing to this whole. And what a great resource for them to use down the road when they're studying for the final, right? Major characters for this section, important events, important quotations, themes, different things like that. So I spoke before about this gradual release of responsibility. So I do the first 2 study guides where I give them the topics and the questions. Sometimes these questions are a little bit more involved than these topics right now. And then in the final study guides for this novel, I just give them a completely blank Padlet and I let them be the moderators. They are picking the topics and they often put more than what I put. They'll find different things to discuss on it and they'll have that discussion, but the same rules still apply. Everyone has to post at least once on each topic and they can't have any repetitive answers. When I say the success that I've had with this type of assignment, it's been amazing. Again, number one, in just the conversations that I'm hearing, the quality of work that I'm seeing, the discussion about the novel that I'm hearing as well is amazing. And I gave the same novel final for 2 classes back to back in a year. One class did not have these study guides. They used the traditional study guides that we had been using. And then the second class ended up using this study guide. I saw a 10% increase in my class average on the final score for this. So they were at an 80% before, and then they were at a 90% overall class average after doing this type of assignment. This is one way that I use Padlet in my classroom. It's worked for me, and there's so many other ways that I continue using this in my class. I hope this was helpful to you, and if you can steal any idea from this, you have my blessing. If you have any questions or you want to ask me about anything that I do in this class, you're more than welcome to contact me. Again, my name is Amber Youngman, and I'm at Johansen High School. Thank you so much for letting me present.
All right, so that was Amber's presentation. Hopefully there was something in there, even if you're not an ELA teacher, something in the way that she constructed that and gave that to her students that kind of helped inspire you to maybe take this back to your classroom and try something similar. I believe we do have some Padlet trainings coming up in February and March, so if you're a brand new user to Padlet, definitely check out the PD catalog and take a look for those. And there is a resource here for you guys. I am going to send you guys a copy of this PowerPoint presentation, but I will go ahead and copy this and put this in the chat for you as well, so you can check this out and take a look at the Padlet's resources available at this link here. Without further ado, our next act is Matthew Ketchum. So Matthew, if you would like to take over the screen share and share the Smart Starts with our lovely guests.
Thank you, Alexandra. Let me share my screen. And here we go. All right, so welcome everybody. We're going to be talking about EdTech Smart Start lesson modules. I think these are a hidden treasure that we have in Schoology. There's something that the EdTech department has worked hard on. So Alexandra Hancock, Angela Gama, and myself have really worked during the summers to put together the EdTech Smart Starts. And they are in Schoology. I'll show you where you can get them. So part of this Empowered Learner ISTE standard is also empowering students to have confidence and understanding of using their digital tools. And that's where these Smart Start lesson plans come in. So they're mini modules. They can help students learn how to use many of our popular EdTech tools that we have in our school district. We have two different areas of this. We have a K6, and the K6 lessons for Smart Start EdTech is teachers will have a lesson plan that we've curated for them, and it's teacher led, and it's the teacher leading the students using those EdTech tools in a practice. For 712, we're really excited. This is the first year that we were able to do this with the EdTech Smart Start, is we've created for 712 teachers, we've created self-paced modules that you can add to your Schoology course. Students can complete them self-paced, and it will show you completion in your Schoology gradebook when a student completes it. It's pretty neat what was designed here. I'll show you more on it. So these Smart Start EdTech lessons, they are found in our Schoology Learning Resource Group. And there's an access code here. And again, as Alexandra shared, this slide deck is going to be shared out with all of you. So if you haven't joined this learning resource group, in a moment I'll go live and go to it. But if you're not a member of it yet, the access code to join is located right here. So I'm actually going to show you, I'm going to go into Schoology. I'll show you how to add that access code if you haven't join the learning resources and where you find learning resources and this hidden treasure that we're calling EdTech Smart Starts that you can share lessons with your students. So in Schoology, if you go up to groups right up at the very top, and then over on the right hand side, if you go to My Groups, there'll be a join button right here that you can join the group. So you just click join, you type in that access code that we had on the slide deck, and you can join this group. Many educators in our school district have joined it already. So if I go to groups, if you already have it, you'll see it right away. You click groups and you'll see learning resources. Another way you might find this is when you click groups. Again, if you go to My Groups on the top right-hand corner, you might see it listed in the list here, and this is alphabetical order. So if I scroll down to learning resource, let's say next page, lots of groups I'm in, it looks like. And here it is. So you might find it that way as well, listed in alphabetical order. So I'm gonna go up to groups again. I'll click learning resources, and let me show you where this is. So you come here, learning resources, click resources on the left-hand side, and then you're going to click this school year, this current school year, 2021-22 school year. And you'll see that there's a Smart Start EdTech Lessons folder. And we got them grouped. So the 712, the self-paced modules, and then the K6. So let me go to K6 to show that. So if I go into K6, what we originally intended this for was the beginning of school. As you're getting started, these are lessons for like week 1 of school, week 2 for school to pace it out. But these can be used anytime throughout the school year. So you don't have to follow that model. You can use these at any time. That you can use them in February here for Empowered Learner. So once you go in, they're kind of themed for what week those lessons were. And you can see there's different lessons on these different topics. So let's say Flipgrid. You want to try that with your students. What you're going to see is a lesson plan. So if I click on this, and this is consistent for all the lesson plans for K6, they all will go through a grade level that could be appropriate with, how much time the lesson would take. There'll be a video that you can share with your students that you could play on the TV that you can share with the whole class. Finding out a little bit more, why would you use this tool? Some things the teacher needs to know before the lesson. Ideas to set up the lesson, how to set up and get started with that tool for the teacher, and then step by step what to do with the students and what activity, and even a check for understanding question that you can have or activity. And we've even aligned it to the ISTE standards for teachers and students. So we're doing a lot of the theming each month on the ISTE standards for students, including February's theme, Empowered Learner. But we aligned each lesson plan to the ISTE standards as well. And that's a similar structure for all the lesson plans that you'll find in the K6 folder. Now, 712, when you come here, you're going to see a listing. I think there's about 10 to 12 topics here. And they're how to use PowerSchool, how to use their Chromebook, how to use Schoology, Google, how to use Tech Help Center website, even taking the ISTA, what that's all about, the Internet Safety Tutorial Agreement. Um, you can even see with Schoology, even doing assignments, doing Cami is all incorporated. And you can see how long it will take a student for the self-paced. So these are pretty cool. All you have to do is any one of these, you can always use the gear right over here, and then you can add it to your own course, which is pretty neat. And then they'll be in your course and students can be able to take them. So we're gonna look at a couple videos and you're gonna see what one of these self-paced smart starts looks like in Schoology for the student to take it. So Alexandra, I'll have you share your screen. And if you could play the videos for us.
Yes, I will share my screen. And do you want me to start with the K6 video?
Let's do the 712, both 712 videos.
Done. There we go. Go ahead and watch this one, and then we'll watch the next one.
Or no sound, Alexandra.
Whoops, let me try one thing real quick and see if I can't get us some sound. Might need to reshare. Let me know if we have sound now.
We have within Modesto City School. Hi, I'm really excited to share with you the 712 EdTech Smart Start lesson modules that we've created to help students learn about the different EdTech tools we have within Modesto City Schools. These Smart Start modules are student self-paced. Teachers, you can add them to your courses in Schoology. And in part 2 of the video, I'll show you how to even set it where you can see if the students have completed the modules in your courses. So in this part 1 video, I'll show you a little bit what is a Smart Start lesson module and how do you get here to add them to your courses. So to share with you, once you add them to your courses, this is what they're going to look like to the students. They're going to be these modules and they'll have different topics for our EdTech tools. Students will click on them. And this is what it's going to look like. The student instructions that I'll show you that we have will have the students do full screen right here. Click the play button to get started. And they're going to be going through a series of activities. There'll be a table of contents here on the left side. As they complete them, it's going to check it off for them so they can see where they left off. The idea is that they complete it in one time, but they can always come back to it. It will remember where they left off. And the activities are going to be text and content. There'll be videos. There'll even be some simulations. So let me show you what a simulation of them trying to use the program with some guided instructions. So as you can see, the students will get some instructions at the top and they can try it out themselves. And if they click somewhere where it's not showing on the instructions, it will give them a little bit of more help on what to do. So this is really neat where they can get guided instruction trying to use those programs in a simulated experience within these lesson modules. All right, let me show you how you get here so you can add them to your courses. The lesson plans are in our Schoology Learning Resource Group. And this is a group that many teachers are a part of and they had used before to get to resources that we're sharing out. But let me show you how to get here. In Schoology, go ahead and click Groups at the very top. And then you should see a learning resource group. If you don't see that, then in the top right-hand corner, click My Groups. And you might see if it's on the list that you might have here. But if you're not part of the group yet, you can join it. You just click the Join Group button here on the right-hand side, and then type in the access code that you see here on the screen. So go ahead and write that down. Once you join the group, you're going to need the access code here in this box to join it. Once you've typed in the code, you just click Join, and you are part of the group. Then we can all go to Groups at the top and click Learning Resources. Once you're here, on the left-hand side is Resources. Then click 2021-2022 school year. Click Smart Start EdTech Lessons. And there's two different folders broken out by different grade levels. And then you're going to click the 712 EdTech Smart Start Lesson Module folder right here. And what you're going to do is on the right-hand side to each module topic, you just click the drop down here and you click Add to Course. Then you go ahead and check all the courses you want to add it to and click Add. And what this will do, it will add that folder with all the module information in it to your course, which is pretty neat. When you click on it here in the learning resources, you'll see what's going to be added to your course, the instructions for the students. You won't be able to actually click here to take the module. It has to be added to your course first. So let's go see what it looks like in my course. I just added it. And here it is. And again, they'll have the instructions for the students, what they'll do with the four-headed arrow, clicking play. And even on their Chromebook, they have right above the number 5, a full screen button, which will be really handy to take these as well. And again, students just click on it and they can get started. And back in learning resources, you can add EdTech Smart Start lesson modules. Again, you're just using the gear off to the right-hand side to the topic. Just click on the gear, click Add to Course, and then just check off the courses you want to add those lesson modules to. And you keep doing that to each of the module topics. A couple ideas SchoolSite shared with me is that they're actually organizing this the first week of school where different periods are going to do different modules here on this list, which sounds like a really great idea. So first period might do MCS app portals. Second period might be doing Schoology Part 1, Part 2. Third period, Power School module. As you can see, we put the time frame here so you can kind of have an idea how long it would take the students to complete it. There is audio, so we would recommend the students use headphones when they are working on these modules. All right, part 2, I'm going to show you, once you've added them to your Schoology courses, how can you set them up so you can see as a teacher if your students completed them?
All right, that was the first video, so we'll go ahead and move on to the next video. Here we go, part 2. We'll go ahead and watch this one next.
Welcome back to the second part of the Smart Start EdTech modules for 712. And in the first video, you got to see how you can get to the learning resources, come to the 712 EdTech Smart Start EdTech lessons folder, and where you can add these Smart Start lessons just by going to the right-hand side to the gear, add to course, and just choosing your courses to add them to. So part 2, in this video, we're going to now go to those courses that you added them to. So I'm here in a course that I added a module to, and I want to show you as a teacher some of the setup that you can do. So on the course itself, if I click on the folder where the module is at, so I do have to go and find the module. On the right-hand side in my course, on the gear, I can click Edit Package Properties. Now, one thing you're going to want to do before you click this is just pay attention to what the module is called. So this is MCS App Portal. So I'm going to click Edit Package Properties. And the first thing I'm going to do is click this checkbox that says Enable SCORM Grading. And then I'm going to click right here where it says Captivate e-learning course. So I'll click on this. I'm going to click Enable Grading. The title, this is why I wanted you to remember what it was called. So we'll type in the title, MCS App Portal Smart Start. The points, you can give it different points. I'm going to give it a 1, and I'll show you why. Then the grading, we're going to change that from score. You want to change it to completion. Then you pick your grading category it would go to. I have a category called participation. I'm going to put that in and click save. So now what's going to happen is when a student completes it, so these learning modules are set to give Schoology if a student completed it or if they hadn't. And completed means they have gone through all the different slides in that module, completed all of the quizzes, and they click the X at the very end and they closed out. So what's going to happen now that you've done this setup is in your grade book here on the left-hand side, you're going to be able to see the different students in your class, and you're going to be able to see if they've taken it. And it will put a 1 if the student has completed it, and it will be empty if they haven't completed it yet. So you can get an idea of what students have completed or what students have not. Again, this setup is optional. You don't have to do the setup. It can just be voluntary lessons that students can go to for information. But if you would like to track and see if the students have completed or not, you can follow this video and it will show you how. So I'm going to be a student. I'm going to show you on the student side completing it, and then I'll come back here on the teacher side where you can see how it gave us a point. So as you saw in that example, the student at the very end clicked the X there, and that completed the course. And when I come back to my gradebook as a teacher, I will be able to see that the student got a 1 now, and it shows me they completed, which is pretty neat. If you are curious how I had that participation grading category here in my Schoology course, on the left-hand side, when you go to grade setup, this is where you can set those categories. So you can always click the add button, type in the category name, and that's how I got to choose that when I was setting this up in this Schoology course. Thank you.
All right, so that was our other video on the Smart Start lesson plans. Hopefully you check those out in the Learning Resources area. And without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce our final presenter of the day. We have Arie Sowers presenting StudyMate. Arie, are you with us?
I am. Can you hear me okay? I'm just going to wave and say hi on video and then I'll turn that off.
Yep, we can hear you loud and clear, and feel free to
Great.
share your screen or do whatever you need to do.
Great, thank you. So thanks everyone for having me today. I think I saw Allison Regassa also on the session with us, and she is also one of the contacts for you at Respondus. She's an account manager here, but I'm one of our trainers. And so my job is to help teachers and institutions use our applications. So we're going to do a 10-12 minute quick overview of StudyMate Campus, which is an application that Modesto City Schools licenses from Respondus. It's built into Schoology. If you can't see my screen, please say so, because sometimes I'm not sure what I'm sharing. But StudyMate Campus is an application that helps you create flashcards, self-assessments, and learning games that both teachers and students can create. One of the unique things about StudyMate Campus is that it allows students to create their own content, but in sort of a contained environment, not an app that they go and use on their own that might have ads and a registration and all these things. It's a tool right in the Schoology course. That also makes it really easy for teachers and students alike to share activities And when teachers share content with students, they have visibility into how much students are using the activities, which is really key for things like participation grade, encouraging comprehension, and things like that. So I'm actually going to pop into StudyMate and show you just really quickly what it looks like to use as a student. So let me make sure that I'm doing this right. If I can switch to a course and make sure that you can see. There we go. Sorry, to switch the window. Let me log out as an instructor and log in here as a student. I've got a bunch of different accounts here to show you. Students would simply open the course and find the StudyMate tab, which is going to be one of the apps or third-party applications in their courses. When students or teachers open StudyMate for the first time, there's a series of screens here that gives you how the application works, what the activities look like, so students can kind of scroll through and see samples of those. There are these great, really short video tutorials that'll cover more than what we have time to cover today. And there's only a couple for students. There are more for teachers. Teachers have a few more features than students do. And then students can also use StudyMate on mobile devices. So if they want to take their activities with them, they don't have to log into Schoology to do that. It's a separate app that, right sizes and makes the activities work well on iOS, Android devices. They just need to set it up once to follow the instructions here. But inside the actual StudyMate application, when the student first starts, they're not going to have a bunch of content here. They'll just have this one sample project at the top of the list. So the way StudyMate is organized is it doesn't matter what course you're in. Students have their own area in StudyMate, kind of like a journal they could access from anywhere, but the content is the same no matter where they where they start. So this would be a list of projects across all the topics that I might be studying, all the classes I'm in. But no matter where they come from, they always start with this sample project that gives them a way of looking at the activities before they have to create anything. And this is true for teachers as well. To look at the activities from here, they simply click a study button. That's it. Every StudyMate project, which you can think of as a collection of content, right? It might be a vocabulary list, it might be practice quiz questions, has its own unique URL, kind of like a YouTube video. So we'll see that a few times. But this is sort of the landing page, if you will, for a StudyMate project that shows you what activities are available, a little summary about what's here, and then you can play or study. So this is a very typical activity, a flashcard. You've got your definition on one side, your term on the other. You can scroll through those, make sure we get them all right. Maybe I want to study that vocabulary in a different way. Obviously students have different learning styles. So instead of your very plain and simple flashcards, I want to pick a letter, which is kind of like Hangman, and I can guess the letters until I get it right. There's also a matching game. Crossword puzzles, a straight list of glossary terms, and for multiple choice format questions, you can also do self-quizzes and play a challenge game, which looks a little bit like a very popular trivia game show. So students have the ability to use the same content in different ways and really learn and understand the material. So that's what a StudyMate project looks like, and that's how a student would get to it from within the application that's in Schoology. But they can do more than this. Let's say you got a couple students who are working together and they want to create projects, and they're each going to divide up, let's say, a section of the book, take a couple chapters and create vocabulary lists, and then share with each other like in a study group. Creating a project is as simple as giving it a name and a description. I've already created a blank one right here. Adding items to a StudyMate project, you simply click the edit button. And there are 3 very simple, easy to use templates that correspond to the different activities. So fact is a template that just has a space for text. If you just want to make a statement or a simple fact, you can add images to activities wherever you see a little camera icon here. Definitions, probably pretty self-explanatory. It's a term and definition format. I'm going to use this sample just to show you creating one. And the StudyMate will prompt the student for which activities this is going to create. The key here is I am writing or typing or copying in this term and definition once. And when I save it, I get multiple different activities from it. Not just, I don't have to create a flashcard and then create the pick a letter game. I enter this once and I get all the activities that match this template, and they're listed here. And questions is multiple or single answer choice questions. So great for practicing test questions. Again, images are here. It's very simple to add content here. Students can type these in one at a time. There's also an import feature. I won't talk about that in too much detail, but it's really straightforward. The instructions are actually built in. So if you have a vocabulary list as an example in a Word document, very easy to bring that in. And again, both students and teachers can do all of these things. And then notice there's that unique web address, that URL up at the top. This would be where the student would ultimately study this vocabulary list that we're creating here. Once I've entered more than one, right? I only have one activity right now, or one item. But going back to that idea of the study group, if a student creates their own StudyMate project and they want to share it with their fellow students, they can use the share feature. This allows them to either grab that URL and send it to their friends, or send an email to a couple of students together, and they all each get that project on the receiving end. Now, when they get a project that somebody else created, they can't edit it. They can study it, but they can't change it. What they can do too, though, is follow it. So let's say my friend sent me a project. I simply put that web address here. And when you follow a project in StudyMate, this little icon shows up next to it. So this one is followed from my friend Anne, which means I can study this project, but I can't edit it. If I want to make it my own, there's a duplicate and edit feature, so I can then take the content that Anne created with me as part of my study group and then make changes to it. Maybe I want to enhance it or add a few items to it. Now, obviously, I could go on. There's a lot more that students can do here. You might even be noticing these little icons at the bottom. You can add other things to a StudyMate project that aren't just the activities you can create in StudyMate. This is a YouTube video. Simply use the follow and enter a different type of URL. So there's examples here that are links out to YouTube. I think this is a Khan Academy project. This is a Quizlet. Yeah, we work with competitors. But there's ways that students can kind of save things they want to use to study all in one place. So that's the student's perspective. And I know that was really quick, but students can do everything the student can do, the instructor can also do. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about the things that teachers can do with StudyMate, in addition to what we saw that students can do. So teachers can create those activities, just like I said. They can create projects. They can add those links in a collection of content together within StudyMate. They can share the same way you just saw me share that link or email it to a couple of people. They can also follow other people's projects. If you want to get, sometimes teachers collaborate on things, maybe everyone in the same curriculum area or grade level. So they can do all the things I just described that students could do, but they can do more. So let me go back into that Schoology course, and I'm going to log in this time as a teacher. So just give me 1 second to log out and log back in again, and then I will share my screen again. Okay, so this time I'm here as a teacher. I also have that StudyMate project or application. Same opening screens, again, a couple more videos on that video tutorials page because I have some features that students don't have. When I go into the StudyMate application, it looks very similar because it is. It's the same list of different projects. I've got a few that I followed, a few that I created myself. You can also even organize projects into folders, which is nice if you have a couple of projects you've broken down into subcategories and then you want to keep them all together. But the one most powerful thing that I think, or that teachers will often tell us that you can do with StudyMate is tracking students' use of projects that you might create for them. So there's a feature in this drop-down list called, let me turn this off and then turn it back on, make available in the course. When I do this for this particular project, it's going to put a link at the top of everyone's StudyMate application in this course, right? That has a link out to the project that I created. So as a teacher, I created some, vocabulary words here I want my students to learn. Now, when students use the link here at the top of the course, what teachers are getting is tracking of the students' use of those activities. And I've got to go back to a quick screenshot to show you what I mean by that, because I don't have any real students in my course. What I mean by that is that when you have students working in that activity, if I were to go to the student usage tab, or there's also a menu item called student usage, I would see the overall statistics for this project, and then student by student, how many times did they visit this project that's full of vocabulary words, and how many different activities did they view? And this is a great way of making sure that students are engaging with the material you want them to. None of this is graded, by the way. This is all about learning activities and self-assessment. But what will happen here a lot of times is teachers will say, well, I know this student is struggling to understand the material, and I see that they have 0 visits and 0 activities viewed. Maybe I need to give more of an incentive to use StudyMate. Maybe I just need to reach out and say, I see you haven't studied the vocabulary yet. You probably should do that, or you're going to have trouble when it comes to either an exam or comprehension or moving on. So it's a way of making sure students are engaged with the material. So that's a really quick overview of how StudyMate works. I'd like to share a little example we call StudyMate in action, sort of a use case for one way that I thought was really powerful, especially in larger schools and across districts that StudyMate Campus is often used among teachers and then with students. Imagine, if you will, as a teacher, you've got, I keep using vocabulary lists and glossary just because it's very simple. It could be practice quiz questions. It could be a lot of different things, but we'll use a glossary of terms as an example. I've got a Word document with hundreds of vocabulary words that over the course of the year I want students to learn. I'm going to import those into StudyMate. It's very easy to format the glossary and then bring it into StudyMate, and it immediately creates multiple different activities for those vocabulary terms and definitions. Then what I'm going to do, once I create that project, I'm going to take that unique URL for my StudyMate project that has hundreds of words in it, and I'm going to share it with my fellow teachers who are teaching the same subject or the same grade level. Those teachers are able to follow that project. Like I showed you, I followed my project from my friend Anne in their own StudyMate projects in their own courses. Now that means even though they didn't create the project, all of those other teachers can make those projects available to their students and see their own students' activity. So again, the example of students in a study group dividing and conquering, each taking a chapter and creating vocabulary words, that also works for teachers to collaborate. And I thought that was a really powerful example of one of the ways that StudyMate can save a lot of time, give teachers robust activities for students to learn from, and make the learning course material really engaging and fun, because these are learning activities, they're games. So that's another thing that some teachers do is, if you break down the chapters in a book or the sections of the content into folders, folders can be shared as single web addresses, single URLs with multiple projects contained in them. So possibilities are endless with being able to organize and sort all these StudyMate activities. So a couple things we always recommend too for institutions that are getting started with StudyMate. College schools and districts and colleges and universities use it too. First is what we're doing now is letting you all know that StudyMate is available right within your Schoology courses. Once that integration is set up, both students and teachers can use it either independently or together. In fact, we often hear that students will find the StudyMate app and use it themselves because they just want to create their own, foreign language vocabulary lists, or maybe they're struggling in science and they'll stumble on it and start using it. And sometimes that even creates interest among their fellow students and it works its way up to the teachers. We talk about Schoology and teacher training. StudyMate in Schoology teacher training is just another application that you have at your fingertips that's integrated seamlessly with your online courses and that's easy to use. And then sometimes it's something that schools will share with students on the first day of classes in some kind of orientation or overview of their online tools, because students do create their own projects and they really love that the mobile app can be used outside of the Schoology environment. They can sync it with those courses and they can even study with those learning activities offline. If you got students that are worried about their data or their Wi-Fi, they don't need to have either of those things. Once they've set up and synced the StudyMate mobile app, they can still study even if they're not, online on the internet. All right. So I'm putting up on the screen the email address for our training team. There are several of us here who are more than happy to answer any questions if you think of them after today. That's also the website for the StudyMate application on respondus.com. So if you have questions that might be answered that way, those video tutorials are also on our website, but they're in the application itself. So the best place to start is really within Schoology. So with that, I guess I'll see if there's any questions. I think we've hit my time limit.
Perfect. Thank you, Arie. I didn't see any questions in the chat. I think that was a great summary of what StudyMate does and how students can use it pretty quickly and easily.
All right. Well, thanks for having us, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for making it. I'll go ahead and share my screen again just so we can kind of finalize our housekeeping items because I think we're just a hair over time. So let me get my screen back up for you guys. And just kind of wrapping up the webinar today, thank you very much for attending. This is just a quick reminder of all the trainings that we have coming up, including Quizzes Pro, the second level reporting and other game modes. We will have a training on StudyMate, so if you're interested in learning more on StudyMate, we will have our own webinar entirely dedicated to that, as well as another session on gamified learning and immersive reader. We do have a few more How Do They Do That lives as well. We've got one for March, April, and May. And again, these are all separate instances for the 0.5% initiative or pay. I think pay is still an option as well. So if you want to go ahead and keep on taking these courses, you can do that and you can still get uniquely paid or get unique credit for each of the sessions as well. And thank you for attending. We don't have an attendance survey, but we do have our PD feedback surveys. I don't have those links handy, but I can go ahead and get them and post them in the chat. I will include them in the follow-up email though. So I know we're a few minutes over time now, so if you don't have time to get those surveys, go ahead and just wait for the email tomorrow. We'll send it out tomorrow. And if you could fill those out at that point, that would be fantastic. And I think that covers everything. Thank you very much for attending, and I will get those survey links posted in the chat here in just a moment. Perfect. Looks like Matthew Ketchum posted them for us, so go ahead and take those if you have the time. If not, stay tuned for the email tomorrow, and thank you very much.